Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast. I am Scott Reynolds, and joined with me today is Josh Capo. We're going to be talking about the Bucs safety position and nickel corners. And as you know, the Pewter Report podcast is proudly sponsored by our friends over at Brier Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company you can count on. For auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, or business insurance, give your business to Brier Greaves Insurance. Make sure you give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. Or visit them on the web at briergreavesinsurance.com. That's Brier, B-R-I-E-R, Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S, insurance.com. We've got a fun show today. And I think we got the right person to talk about this because Josh Capo is doing the nickel corner, safeties, and cornerbacks draft previews for us on pewterreport.com. And those will be out, later or early part of next week, I guess. Yeah, as we wind down our pre-draft coverage. So let's bring in Josh right now. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. It's so funny that you said that because so I volunteered to help out on this podcast because Matt is traveling today. Yeah. And when I looked at our schedule and I went, this was a good one for me to volunteer for.
Yes. You are well-read, well-versed, well-viewed when it comes to nickels and corners and safeties.
Yeah. So I'm glad that I was on today. And yeah, it's an interesting dynamic and an interesting concept because the Bucs could opt to try and improve the safety position over, the contributions that Jordan Whitehead gave last year by just straight drafting a safety, or they could try and address it. I've seen some people tell me, well, do you think they can try and upgrade nickel? It'd be hard to upgrade nickel. Tykee was really, really good. Yeah. Tykee Smith was really good last year, but you can try and upgrade safety by drafting a nickel,
right,
and kicking Tykee up to safety. So what it does, it gives the Bucs a lot of versatility because they feel comfortable with Tykee in either spot. It's not dissimilar to how they tried to address the position a few years ago after dropping Antoine Winfield Jr. into the slot and then rotating him back up the following, was that 2023, rotating him back to free safety because they felt good with Christian Izien in the slot. So lots of avenues, which I think is good because as I go through this class, I think that it will probably be easier to upgrade the defense by finding a nickel rather than finding a safety. Not that they can't, but just that I think that the avenues to upgrade the defense through the nickel position are probably a little bit more robust than just straight finding a safety and leaving Tykee where he's at.
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at this particular draft class and the players that the Buccaneers have been targeting, there was a recent development last night with regards to one of the latest official 30 visits, and that player will be Maxwell Hairston, the cornerback from Kentucky. We'll talk about him for just a second. So interesting player, just under 6 feet tall, 5'11", kind of rail thin, about a buck 83. Not exactly the prototype you're looking for in a Todd Bowles cornerback, but he ran a 4.28 at the combine, fastest player this year in Indy. And Todd Bowles has mentioned over and over again that one of the things he looks for in cornerbacks, one of the more important traits, is speed. And you look at Jamel Dean running a 4.3 coming out of Auburn, and Zion McCollum just over a 4.3 coming out of Sam Houston. So Todd Bowles likes some fast corners for sure. Even Sean Murphy-Bunting, I think, was a 4.4 guy coming out of Central Michigan back in the day. So let's take a look at the cornerback position when it comes to their official 30 visits. And you can see they've just stacked that position. There are 18 known official 30 visits that we've been able to glean from media reports and our own sources. So you look at the receivers, there's 3. They've got 3 defensive tackles coming in for visits, mostly second-round guys. Edge rushers, mostly day 2 guys, with the exception of Nico Williams. He's a first-rounder. One linebacker that we've been made aware of. Now, keep in mind, there are 12 missing names from this list that we don't know. There could very well be 5 linebackers that they've brought in. or maybe 5 more cornerbacks for all intents and purposes, Josh. When you look at the corners, Savon Rebel Jr., East Carolina, Maxwell Hairston, Kentucky, Trey Amos, Ole Miss, Nohl Williams from California, Jacob Parrish from Kansas State, Nico Reed from Oregon, and Jaylen Smith from USC, and then one safety, J.J. Roberts. When you look at that, and again, we don't have the complete picture because there's 18 names here, 12 that are missing, but
and one more as of about an hour ago. I'm not sure if it's considered an official 30, just depending on whether it's considered local. But Azariah Thomas out of Florida State posted to his Instagram not too long ago. JC Allen of Bucs Game Day also reporting that he was brought in for a visit as well.
If that's the case, that would be an official 30 visit, another cornerback, because Florida State is outside of the 50-mile radius. So,
I wasn't sure based on where he went to high school, because that could also be
that's true.
Local, right? So I can look that up while you kind of continue to go on about how many they have brought in.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, he is from Niceville, Florida. So
I know Niceville well. I have family in Niceville. So
how far away is that? Is that within 50 miles?
No, that is the Panhandle. That is almost Alabama range. So.
So that's another official 30 visit then for the Buccaneers. Another cornerback. Surprise, surprise, right? And because just in case you're interested, the 50-mile radius basically encompasses University of Florida, USF, which is some school in Tampa. Josh, are you familiar with USF?
I am. Everyone should be. It's the best school in Florida.
Oh, okay. Good Bulls, right?
Exactly.
And then UCF, which is another Florida school down I-4. Are you familiar with that one at all?
Yeah, I mean, they just got promoted out of the high school level, so good for them.
Yeah. So those are the 3 colleges really that the Buccaneers can draw from their local visits. And as you mentioned too, if you went to high school in that 50 miles radius as well, then you can come to Tampa Bay for a local visit. So let's say you went to Auburn, Kansas State, Alabama, whatever, but you're from, say, Ocala or Sarasota or Lakeland,
like Durant or something like that.
Exactly. Then you can come for that official, I should say, for the local pro day visits. So a lot of cornerbacks. Let's just go through this list real quick, and when we kind of dive into the positions here, let's separate outside corners from nickels here, and maybe there's a couple guys that can play both. But Savon Rebel Jr., 6'3", I don't know that he's built for playing inside. He's more of an outside corner, right?
I think he's got the fluidity to play inside. And I think it should be noted that these days, the way that offenses like to get condensed, you have to be able to you have to feel comfortable playing from an inside alignment. But Revel is somebody who I think teams would want to keep towards the outside, because it can be more difficult to keep up with X receivers there, play that press coverage. So, I would definitely say he's an outside guy.
And certainly I think where Todd Bowles would want him. Now, Maxwell Hairston, I'm kind of doing this a little bit in draft order, maybe how we see the board. Some folks have Maxwell Hairston as a late first-round possibility. Some would say that about Savon Rebel Jr. as well. But when you look at Maxwell Hairston, where do you see him? Is he one of those guys that can flex inside and out?
Yeah, if you're rounding his height, it would round to 6 feet, because it's like 5'11" and 7/8 or something like that, or 5/8. So technically it would round to 6 foot, but the arm length is a little bit shorter. So I would say that he would be somebody who's probably going to move into the slot at the next level. It could be something like what teams do with offensive linemen these days, right? Kind of let them fail at tackle, and then we'll move them inside, where a team may try to let Hairston fail on the outside and then have the nickel as a backup plan. I personally see him as a nickel, and when our Bucs best bets and our positional previews come out, he'll be included in the nickel preview.
And then when you look at Ole Miss's Trey Amos, what are your thoughts on him? What is his height and weight? And I think he's a 4'4" guy in terms of his speed.
Yeah, he is. Tested a lot better than I think most people realize, because everybody else is talking about Darian Porter and Savon Revel as these elite uber testers. And then I think they forget that that Amos actually tested really, not like superbly, like not like a 9.0 or better relative athletic score, but certainly very good. I think over a 7.5, but he is 6 feet and 6/8 of an inch. So call it 6'1", just under 200 pounds, a 4.4 340. I would say he's an outside corner.
Yep. And going back to this list here, we've got the top 3 guys in terms of maybe their draft order that have come into Tampa Bay for an official 30 visit. Nohl Williams, a player that you and I like, he has appeared in our mock draft before. I think the first one, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
And Williams is a ball hawk, 6 foot. What's his weight? It's in the
199 and a 4.5 flat on the 40-yard dash there.
So with him not being the fleetest of foot, we've seen the Buccaneers start an outside corner before who had 4.5 speed, and that was Carlton Davis. Not ideal, but he made up for it with this physicality. Do you see Nohl Williams as a guy that can do both, or is he better suited for outside or inside?
I would think of him as an outside corner first, just because I think the hips are a little tighter, which would make it difficult for him to do those two-way goes on the inside.
Yeah, that's really important, and I think that's why Todd Bowles, when you look at the nickels that he has had. Since really he came onto the scene in 2019, right? He and Jason Light, Bruce Arians drafted Sean Murphy-Bunting, who played at nickel at 6 foot, about 190 plus pounds. But then every other nickel that he's had, remember Antoine Winfield Jr. played nickel as well for one season, 5'9". Same with Christian Izzian, 5'9". You had Tykee Smith last year play at 5'10". So that's more of what Todd Bowles looks for, not just the nickels, but also safeties, because it's kind of a quasi position. It really is more safety than it is outside corner because of the proximity. They're in the middle of the field, and like as you mentioned, those two-way goes, being able to have I guess the trunk, the shorter legs to be able to turn the hips to cover more space. And not have those double moves or get juked one way or the other. Their hips are more on a swivel, and that's kind of what Bowles looks for. He's only had one big safety. That was Keanu Neal. Didn't really work out too well. He was a bigger guy, almost like a linebacker in terms of his size. Every other safety the Buccaneers have really had. Maybe the exceptions, Kayvon Merriweather is a little bit bigger, but most of those safeties that Tampa Bay has, they're on the smaller side, 5'9", 5'10", between 190 and 200 pounds. Let's go back to our list here. And so we've got Nohl Williams, who's come in for a visit, Jacob Parrish, who I know very well from my days of watching Kansas State football, which I do from time to time, or I don't know, every Saturday. Played outside corner, 5'10" and some change, about 190 pounds. Very fast, faster than I thought he would be, 4.35 speed at the combine. I think that's why the Buccaneers did not interview him at the combine, but they had him in for an official 30 visit to maybe do a little bit of late homework on him. And 4 interceptions as a junior, and then this past season had 1 interception. Competitive player, but with the size limitations, is he more inside or out?
I think those contribute to it. And then the other thing with him, just using his athletic testing to kind of relate this, his explosive testing was the vertical jump, the broad jump were both very impressive. 37.5 inch on the vert, 10, what was it, almost 11 feet on the broad jump, if I remember correctly. And I think that that's a really good proxy for skills needed on the inside. I personally feel like you need a better athlete to play nickel than you necessarily do on the outside, because you have to have a guy who can quickly trigger to help in run fits, right? Especially with offenses, again, playing so condensed. Those nickels are playing so much closer to the line and having to help with run fits, and then having to bust through perimeter blockers to get to the screens. So I think that, yes, his lack of length, but you also kind of kicks him inside, but you also say he's kind of a perfect profile for an inside guy because he is a little bit shorter, but he's also a very explosive athlete, which I think is needed And I think that there's this change now with the nickel position where it used to be, we'll kind of kick the guy who's not good enough in there. And now it's such an important position.
Specialized,
on defense, it's becoming much more of something that's prioritized. And that's why we're talking about a guy like Maxwell Hairston being a first round pick and potentially being a nickel, right? Like that's the importance of that position these days. We've seen the nickel market reset twice in the last week in terms of how much those guys are getting paid on the open market. Now starting to get up higher on the cornerback market in terms of APYs.
Similar size, maybe not as fast, but Nico Reed out of Oregon and is a guy that you really like and have turned me on to. Very tough, competitive guy with good ball skills, plays bigger than his size. Where is he at size-wise, Josh?
Size-wise, he is, I just lost him. I want to say he's 5'10" or 5'9".
Yeah.
And I want to say under 180, if I remember correctly. I'll pull it up here in just a second.
Very competitive player.
Yeah, just to make an easy comparison for Bucs fans, reminds me a lot of Kindle Vildor in terms of he's not going to back down from a fight. Does not matter who's lined up above him or across from him or how much that person should dominate him based on pedigree or physical build. He doesn't care. He is going to fight tooth and nail through that, and it's that competitiveness that he has that allows him to do a lot more than you would think given his more average athleticism and build.
And then rounding out the cornerbacks that the Bucs have brought in, this is another player in addition to Maxwell Hairston and Savon Revel Jr. This is the third player that has come in for an official 30 visit and also a formal interview at the combine, and that's USC's Jaylen Smith.
Yep. Smith is, I just had it in front of me, 5'10" and 5'8", 187 pounds, 4'4", 40, 30 3/8 inch arm span or arm length. And then his wingspan is, 75 1/4. So the wingspan is actually pretty solid. The arm length is not so great. So he's got that bigger, broader chest that helps him on the wingspan. But I would still say this is somebody that would profile more inside as a nickel.
Yeah. So those are the players that have come in for the official 30 visits that we know of: Revel, Hairston, Amos, Williams, Parrish, Reed, Smith, and then we'll get to Roberts in a second. And of course, Azariah Thomas is another one from Florida State, an outside corner. Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say an outside corner.
And one of the slower prospects too, right? A 4.58. That's
4.58 40, and I want to say that was at his pro day. So you're probably thinking a 4.6 40.
Yeah.
And that was something that you and I watched him at Senior Bowl, and that was one of the first things that we discussed was, is the speed going to be able to play at the next level? Yeah. And especially for the type of game that he is billed at, like a press man corner, I have serious concerns about his ability to keep up with your faster, shiftier receivers. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. We talk about, Carlton Davis was a press man corner that the Bucs did really well with, who ran a 4.5, but if I remember, Carlton ran like a 4.51, 4.5 flat, 4.53, somewhere in there. Yeah. Not a 4.58, and definitely not a pro day 4.58. So I think his draft stock has fallen a bit recently. It certainly has in my eyes, but that definitely won't play. I think, again, hips are way too stiff to play inside. He's going to be somebody that's going to have to rely on kind of the outside and using the sideline to not have to shift back and forth in a bunch of different directions.
Seems to me he would be a great fit for like a cover 2 scheme where he's got that safety help over the top because of the lack of the long speed. Problem is the Bucs don't play a lot of cover 2.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him working in the Bucs system because cover 3, cover 4, when you're off, you don't have to worry about your long speed, right? You've got enough cushion that you can. Oh,
cushion. That's exactly what Bucs fans love to hear. They love to hear the word cushion when it comes to Todd Bowles cornerbacks giving cushion to wide receivers, Josh.
I think it's something
you just made everyone's day.
I think Azariah Thomas is going to need some cushion. So I could see him working in the Bucs system. I don't think he's an ideal fit. And I have serious questions whether his game is going to translate to the next level. Now, he's very young. He's one of the youngest prospects in this draft class. I want to say he's still 20 years old. So there's a lot of time to develop and maybe improve things like his fluidity. But he would not be the top of my board.
Yeah, only 2 interceptions in his Florida State career. Does have 17 pass breakups, though, so he's a very competitive player and gets after it. We'll see. We'll see if he's and definitely a day 2 guy, but more round 3 than round 2, you think?
I think he'll go in the second. I mean, there's still talks of him potentially going in the first. I don't know if he'll make it to the third. I could see him sliding, but I would say right now, day 2 or early day 2, like second round would probably be where I'd peg him.
Wow, that seems high for a slow corner, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So let's take a look now at what the Buccaneers. So we talked about the players the Buccaneers have had an interest in. And there's a couple of other players we should mention as well. We don't know if these players have come in for an official 30 visit or not, but they did have a formal interview at the Combine. Some of these guys, like Nohl Williams, only had an informal, but we'll pay attention to the guys that had the formal interview. And one of those guys was Notre Dame's Benjamin Morrison. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, this would be an outside corner. He's longer. He's over 6 foot. And with him, again, I don't know if the hip fluidity is there. And that was before his hip surgery for me, just watching his tape. Then you have hip surgery. Definitely not a guy I see profiling on the inside.
Yep. And then the other cornerback that you and I both really like a lot, I'm hoping he's had an official 30 visit, Kobe Bryant from KU. With the fictional bird there. That is, they call it a Jayhawk, but it's really the bastard son of Toucan Sam.
Every time you bring it up, I think of Mockingjay from, what was that book series? The Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games, yeah, exactly. Yep. Good player, though. I really like him a lot. So glad he's done with his KU career. He was a thorn in the side of not just K-State, but a lot of Big 12 schools. Very good ball hawk. And I'll tell you what, his measurables surprised me. He's actually 6 foot, and he got his weight up to 180.
Yep.
Probably needs to put on another 5 or 6 pounds at the next level, but plays bigger than his size. He is a tough nut, big time toughness. Will come up and tackle, fearless defender. The speed, though, 4.53, that's not ideal. Faster than his KU teammate Noah Dotson, who was in the 4.6s. But where do you see Kobe Bryant's future? Is that nickel in a Tampa Bay scheme, or can he play outside?
I'm going to have him listed as a nickel, but that one's really going to be the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Because the arm length, 41st percentile for corners, so a little bit on the shorter side, but then his wingspan was 77 inches.
Yeah.
So he hits the 6 foot mark, and then he's got this real long wingspan, tip to tip, if you will, at 77 inches. So he's somebody, again, it could be like, let him fail outside, move him inside. He's one of a few that I've had a really hard time kind of deciphering where would be his best fit. And I think it comes down to eye of the beholder. Someone, again, Jeddah Barron out of Texas would be somebody. Maxwell Hairston, which we talked about earlier. Kobe Bryant's another one where it's like all three of them I think I have listed as nickels, but I could very well see them being used on the outside depending on what team they go to and what that team sees as their best fit.
We have a couple super chats for Mike Wells we're going to get to in just 1 second here, but let's set the table with where the Buccaneers are right now with their roster. Let's take a look at the Bucs corners, because we're talking about the corner, nickel, and really the safety position, because we're honing in on Tykee Smith, who might be a nickel. Again, he might be a safety depending on who they draft, and I think that's kind of why the team has a little bit of positional flexibility with Tykee right now. But these are the Buccaneer cornerbacks as we see them right now. These are the guys that will play outside more than likely. Zion McCollum, Jamel Dean, starters for now. Bryce Hall was re-signed. Kendall Vildor has enough size at under 6 foot where he could play inside, but he's played mostly outside. I think that's where the team sees him, because they don't want Josh Hayes or Tyreek Funderburk to see the field unless it's on special teams. And Dallas Flowers was in the practice squad. So, right now you look at this, and that's 7 guys on this roster. There will be a couple of these players that will simply not make the team, and they're going to add some more corners in the draft too. Any thoughts on these particular players here? We kind of agree that these players, with the exception of Tyreek Funderburk, who played at App State in the slot and also on the outside, and he cross-trained in training camp last year at both spots. That's why he has the asterisk, because the team kind of does view him as someone who can do both. But your thoughts on this list?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. I would say Jamel Dean is coming off of probably his worst injury-plagued season, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So for those people who are like, oh, it's only going to get worse, typically you're going to get regression to the mean, which means he'll probably play more this upcoming season. Bryce Hall had a freak injury that knocked him out of all but a few snaps in week 1. Yeah. So I think when you look at this room and compare it to last year, and especially with Vildor, who proved that he is a competitor on a playoff team who can step into that role, I would say this is a much better looking room than it was last year, even though it actually looks very similar just because of those outlier injury concerns. And then what's interesting is Josh Hayes was somebody they saw as kind of a nickel in years past.
Yeah, right.
Yep. And just didn't seem to work out there. I think it was the hip tightness, something you and I talked about when he was coming out of Kansas State. Like,
exactly.
Will he be able to play that position? Not sure. And it turns out like they gave him the opportunity, and now they really see him as that outside player.
Yeah, he's really a gunner. It's really what he is more than anything. That's where his bread is buttered for sure. Now let's take a look at the nickels and the safeties, and you can kind of see why they're bringing in so many nickels, Josh, because they only have a couple of guys really that can play in the nickel. Tykee Smith, and Christian Izzy, and both of those guys have asterisks by them because those are the flex guys. Those are the guys that really Todd Bowles could see at one or the other spot. Izzian is kind of like that super sub, that guy who's better off coming off the bench as a spot starter due to an injury at nickel or safety. He can play free. He can play strong. He can play nickel. I think that's where he's the best when it comes to being a versatile player. But your thoughts here? Only 3 players right now, and if Tykee Smith moves, then you certainly only have 2 with Izzian and Funderburk. You need to add another corner or 2 that can play the slot. And then the safety position, they certainly could add another safety to the mix here. They do like Marcus Banks and Rashad Wisdom, who were wire-to-wire practice squad guys last year. And neither one of them made the team as undrafted free agents, but they were on the practice squad the entire season. The Buccaneers will rotate some players through on the practice squad, but those guys stuck the entire season. Todd Bowles has spoken highly of Kayvon Merriweather. We think he made some strides. So if the Buccaneers have to go into the season opener in 2025 with the top 4 safeties, Winfield, Smith, Izzian, and Merriweather, not the worst thing in the world, but they will either add another safety in the draft or maybe after the draft as an undrafted free agent, right?
Yeah, I think a few things from this. Number one, no matter how you look at it with Tykee, the top 3 are starters. So that's Antoine, Tykee, and Izzian. So first injury to one of those 3, well, your first man up is Merriweather, right?
Yeah.
Which means your second man up is Marcus Banks or Rashad Wisdom, whoever kind of wins between the 2 of those and wins out on the depth chart.
Yeah.
But then let's look at what happened last year. Marcus Banks and Rashad Wisdom, as you said, were on the practice squad all season long. The Bucs went through a myriad of injuries to their secondary, including losing Jordan Whitehead at 2 different points in the season.
Antoine didn't get called up.
Tykee, exactly. The Bucs went to another team's practice squad to bring Merriweather back rather than promoting either of those 2 players, despite both having solid preseason. So,
and they also re-signed Ryan Neal too.
That's right. They did before promoting either one of them. So I think that in and of itself tells you, at least last year, what the team thought of those 2. They're good enough to be practice squad players, but not promotable practice squad players. Yeah. Maybe they take a step forward. But I think when you really break it down and say Smith, Izzian, and Winfield are all starters at this moment.
Yeah.
Okay, now we've got some issues. And that's why I think that they're doing so much due diligence to improve the secondary.
Yeah, for sure. And the one thing too, keep in mind with Banks and Wisdom being on the practice squad, they're running scout team for the other team, right? They're playing the opponent in practice every week. So for the entire season, pretty much they're not playing in Todd Bowles' defense, which is complex, and certainly at the safety position. So they got a taste of what Todd Bowles' scheme is all about in rookie minicamp, in the OTAs, and training camp in the preseason. But then once the season started, those guys' practice reps were not in Todd Bowles' system. They were in other teams' system. And so that might be, that combined with their lack of experience in the league, might be the reason why the Bucs opted for a Mike Edwards, a Ryan Neal, guys that had experience in Todd Bowles' system and had experience in NFL games outside of the preseason.
Yep.
Let's take a look at some super chats here from Mike Wells. Thank you so much, Mike. $10 super chat. Awesome show so far, guys. Love hearing from SR and Josh on the draft coverage. If we end up sticking at 19, who are the top 3 DBs you'd like to see light pick there that warrant the pick? Well, I will say one thing, and it kind of goes back to the topic on today's show, the safety dance, and of course that is a play on the popular one-hit wonder song that Talking Trash, one of our Pewter Report TV channel members, alludes to. You can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind, because if you don't dance, well, if you don't dance, then you're no friend of mine. That's right. The safety dance for Men Without Hats. Fantastic one-hit wonder song. Interesting Renaissance-themed video, too, that had absolutely nothing to do with the song, but still, that's the 80s for you in a nutshell.
It's so much fun to watch it.
Yes. But we did have Malachi Starks as the first-round pick for Tampa Bay in our latest mock draft, which was about 3 weeks ago or so. And the thing with Starks is he played with some guy named Tykee Smith at Georgia. They got some on-field chemistry already. And both Starks and Smith are kind of interchangeable, right? So that they both have the ability to play some nickel, some strong safety, maybe even some free safety as well. What are your thoughts on Malachi Starks? Because I think that's probably one of the 3 defensive backs that might be in play for the Buccaneers, to answer Mike Wells' question.
Yeah, I think he is extremely versatile, which would give the Bucs 3 different safeties who can move up or down. And that may be something that Todd Bowles is, coveting, right? Yeah. Because then, mix and match, you can, play a lot more matchup ball, and also create a lot more multiple looks that make it difficult for the opposing offenses to discern what he's trying to do. And we know that Bowles loves to disguise his looks. So yeah. I think Starks definitely can fit the bill there. He'll be featured as a safety in our write-ups. Yeah. As of right now, maybe things change, but I don't think so. Yeah. And I think with him, I would keep Tykee in the nickel. And so I do think that he could be somebody at play. I've cooled on him a little bit. He wouldn't be one of my top 3 DBs. I mean, to go back to the question, like the top 3 DBs, Starks is definitely one of them. Would he be one of my top 3 DBs there? Not necessarily. And then the top 3 DBs I would have at 19, you probably don't have the greatest value there. So, but definitely Starks is, I think, somebody that's on the Bucs radar, and they love scouting Georgia.
Yeah, they do. And I would say Savon Rebel Jr. might be a surprise pick, right, at number 19 in terms of their top 3 defensive backs. I'm not sure if this team is interested in Will Johnson or not. He didn't run a 40-yard dash time. He's got short arms. I don't know. I think this is a player that really might fall in the draft, and he might fall right past Tampa. And I know he's got some size and some playmaking ability. The tape in 2024 was not as good as the tape in 2023. I'm not the biggest Maxwell Hairston fan, but he did have 4 or 5 interceptions in 2023, including some pick sixes. He had 1 pick six this year. He does fit the speed component that Todd Bowles likes. He is a ball hawk. Yep. There has been some talk that he might be a late first-round pick. So Maxwell Hairston, Savon Rebel Jr., and Malachi Starks might be the 3 DBs that I could see Tampa Bay targeting.
I'll add another one. I think he's got the cleanest tape out of all of them, and he'd be a surprise at 19. And I think most people would say not a great value. Yeah. Trey Amos, and he's had an official thing. Amos has really clean tape from an SEC team, a ton of pass breakups. And again, I don't think he gets enough credit for like the athletic testing that he's had, but Amos is somebody that I think Bucs fans should familiarize themselves with a little bit more than they really have. Right. And we'll do our best to try and, add to that. But again, just 4.43 40, 32 and a half inches on the vert, and which isn't great, but his broad jump was 10 feet 6 inches, which was the 77th percentile. And when you consider that his height, 6 foot and 3/4, he's almost 200 pounds. The wingspan is over 77 and a half inches at 77 3/4. That's somebody who I think could be in play. And because most mock drafts have him in the second round, he's somebody I think NFL teams probably higher on than the media.
Yeah, that very well could be the case. Mike Wells, we just talked about Will Johnson, but we'll certainly entertain this $5 super chat. Also, you guys, what's your thoughts on Will Johnson? Do you believe the rumors that he might be dropping in Ben's draft? I think he will. Now, I have no idea if Tampa Bay likes him or not. He was not in on a official 30 visit that we know of. And so we weren't able to talk to everybody. Like, for example, we weren't able to talk to Trey Amos at the combine. Don't know if he had a formal visit or an informal visit. Some of the players didn't make it to the podium due to getting their medicals done, MRIs, x-rays, etc. I think Will Johnson was one of those players, as well as Trey Amos, where they just didn't make it to the podium. So I don't know. I do think that he is dropping. Could he be there at 19? Yes. Could he be the pick at 19? He might be. Could the Bucs pass on him? They just might. I don't know. So we're kind of know-it-alls when it comes to the draft, Josh. But what we don't know, we don't know.
That is very true.
One thing we do know.
Summed it up better.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just keeping it real, right? One thing we do know, if you're looking for a happy hour, Walk-Ons has got a fantastic happy hour, right? So it's Wednesday. There are 2 happy hours for you to enjoy. One that's going on right now from 3 to 6 p.m. and then from 9 p.m. to close tonight. So it's a great time. There's some hockey playoffs coming up. Tampa Bay is in. So how about that? So that's a great place to go to watch any sporting event. Ashley and I were there watching the Masters over the weekend. Had some fantastic food, but the happy hour specials are fantastic as well. $3.99 domestic pints, $5 premium house pours or happy hour wines, 22-ounce domestic drafts for $5.49. $4 will get you the hush puppies or the onion ring. $7 for the boom boom shrimp, the half waffle cheese fries, or the spinach and artichoke dip, which is amazing, and $8 for the boneless wings and the cheeseburger sliders, which are always a hit. They also want to let you know that if you're a big Jack Daniel's enthusiast, they have a Jack Daniel's Spirited Dinner. You can reserve your seat for May 21st at 6:30. This is at any of the locations, Wesley Chapel, Tampa, or Midtown Tampa or Lakeland. And that is for May 21st at 6:30. You can enjoy expertly crafted pairings featuring Jack Daniel's finest selections. So this is the premium stuff, folks. This is the good stuff. Make sure you secure your reservation by calling 813-771-7100. That's 813-771-7100, or emailing mid-mkt@walkingtallbrands.com. That should be a fun time. The folks over at Walk-Ons do a great job with their food, with their drinks. Their drink specials are fantastic, and also the TVs. They have TVs galore over there. Let's talk about one of the safety prospects. Let's go back to our list here. Only one safety prospect that we're aware of, and that's J.J. Roberts out of Marshall, who is a day 3 guy. 14 pass breakups last year. Very active player, transferred. So he didn't spend his whole career at Marshall, but really interesting player in terms of being a day 3 guy. Probably would do well with special teams, etc. What are your thoughts on J.J. Roberts? It seems to me, just by this list, and again, there are 12 names missing, so we have to really be honest about this and say there might be 3, 4, 5 safeties on here that we just don't have the names of. That those names have not been made public yet. But Roberts being a day 3 guy, does it seem to you that nickel is more the priority and safety is really not throughout this draft process, Josh?
I'd say overall, but I think Roberts may be the exception that proves the rule. The size, I think, could play in either spot. But when you look at his usage over the course of his college career, He has almost 1,000 snaps at the post, up
Mhm.
top.
Yep.
And then just under 300 in the slot. This past year, it was a 600 to 68 split. So he has some reps in the slot. I would say I haven't had a chance. He's somebody I'm going to try and look at late tonight, early tomorrow morning to really get a feel for his game. But I would say he's somebody right now I peg as a safe D, and then potentially he could move to the slot.
Yeah. So that's another player that maybe has some positional flexibility. The other players that the Buccaneers interviewed at the safety position at the combine, not as many as the cornerback spot, which again, not much of a surprise because the team is really focused on finding a nickel corner. If you're going to see Tykee Smith dance over from nickel to safety, we talked about Malachi Starks. He was one of those players that the team interviewed at the combine formally. Jonas Sanker from Virginia is another player you and I both like. He was a formal interview as well. What are your thoughts on Sanker? Don't know if he's come in for an official 30 visit or not, though.
Yeah, Sanker is somebody, again, positional flexibility. I like him as a safety. I think as a box safety, he's really aggressive, really strong. He's an enforcer type, but he's played some slot. He would be somebody who I would put at safety first. Yeah. And just to give people kind of an idea, he's safety 4 on my board. I have him over somebody like Nick Amenwari. So who a lot of people have to say, I think he's safety 1 and Dane Brugler's the beast, right? Yeah. So I love Sanker. He is safety 4 for me. I was just listening to the NFL draft stock exchange with former Pewter reporter Trevor Sikkema, and they were doing their mailbag, and they had somebody who's like, my big draft take is Jonas Sanker, safety 4. And I was like, me too. Got my.
There you go.
I found a kindred spirit. Let's go. That's a big one that I'm sticking my neck out on the line there for.
Todd Bowles once ball hawks, and Xavier Watts was a big time ball hawk, and he was also in official, I should say, a combine formal interview, not an official 30 that we know of, but this guy is around the ball an awful lot. Maybe not the best athlete in the world, but there's some pretty good tape out there on Xavier Watts. There is with Benjamin Watson. What are your thoughts on Watts?
Yeah, I think the ball production is a little overblown for him personally. I
just got lucky on some of those plays, didn't he? Right place, right time.
Yeah, but that goes to him being opportunistic. He's always got his eye on the ball. And then he is good at reading routes and understanding route development. So that allows him to jump those throwing lanes. Mm-hmm. So I worry a little bit about his size, his speed overall. I'm trying to remember what he ran, the 40.
I don't think he did.
No, he did it his pro day. It was 4.58.
Okay.
So for a safety, that's not like as terrible as what we were talking about with Azariah Thomas, but it makes a difference. I don't think that he can play the slot at that speed. So he really is a safety. Yeah. And I think he doesn't bring a ton of aggressiveness to his tackling. Yeah. And so he can miss some tackles just in terms of getting run over. Right. So I'm not a huge Watts guy personally, but in terms of fit, I think he's somebody where you would keep Tykee in the slot and he would play up on the post with Antoine.
Okay. Tyler Livo, one of our Pewter Report TV channel members, with a $2 super chat. He says, did I miss Barron, meaning Texas defensive back Jeddah Barron? The Buccaneers, to our knowledge, have not had him in for an official 30 visit, as well as not interviewing him at all at the combine, either formally or informally. That might be because Tampa Bay doesn't think he's going to be there. That could be, right? Some teams have, or I should say some draft analysts have teams taking him around the top 10, top 15. So he might not make it to Tampa Bay at number 19. If he does, though, he is an interesting player because he's played all over. Outside, slot, safety, very versatile player. I happen to like him. I don't know if I love him, but what are your thoughts on Jeddah Barron?
I'm a big fan of the tape. For me, I have trouble figuring out what his best role would be. Yeah. So right now he is CB2 for me on my board. He's somebody I would try on the outside, but that's the thing is that's where I'd play him. Yeah. And he doesn't meet the length requirements that the Bucs would have. So I don't think that they would necessarily see him as an outside corner, which is where I think his best tape is.
Sure.
So now if you've got a guy where his best tape isn't in a role that you would be comfortable putting him in, what do you do with a guy like that? So that may be why the Bucs might not be in on him, is they go, what he does best doesn't fit our system. So then we'd be kind of putting a square peg in a round hole, maybe just not the best fit. And that's, I think, brings us to a really great point. You and I have made it a lot. Every team's board is different because every team runs a different scheme. Every team has different needs for different positions, whether it's physical needs or how they play or technique. And so somebody like Barron, who may be a top 5 or 10 player for 20 teams in the NFL, may not be on the Bucs board at all.
Yeah, that's true. One of the guys where I should say all of the guys that are on our board at Pewter Report are our Pewter Platinum members: Scott Federico, Rachel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Hezo 813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, Zach Brannigan, RP89, Eric McMillan, Connor For Reals, Zach Jarvis, Kevin Thomas, and Mario Thomas. Thank you so much for being our Pewter Report Platinum members.
I love how that list keeps getting longer.
Yeah, it's great to see. And these are our Pewter Premier Channel members. We need to update this list. We might be missing a couple of you. Apologies if that's the case. We're going to let this roll, and greatly appreciate all of the support we get from our Pewter people, our Pewter Pro members, our Pewter Premier, and our Pewter Platinum members. Greatly appreciate that. And if you want to,
shout out to Paul, aka OG Baker Bro.
No doubt. And if you want to show your support for Pewter Report, you can become a channel member too. It's easy. All you have to do is go to the front of pewterreport.com. I should say Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel. Sorry, folks, I got a lot going on. We have the draft coming up in a week, and my brain is just overloaded. Maybe it was being on the Loose Cannons podcast last night. Maybe that got to me. I don't know.
That's a valid excuse. Those guys.
That tends to get you, right? A little trip at the Loose Cannons, but fun show. But you can show your support by becoming a channel member. Lots of different options. Just to find the one that is right for your budget, and you can help us out. We greatly appreciate all the support from our Pewter Report channel members. $3.99, $6.99, $9.99, $24.99. All of the perks are listed when you hit the join button on Pewter Report TV. And if your business is interested in advertising with us, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have a conversation with you for sure. We can help your business score new customers. Advertise with Pewter Report, whether it's our Pewter Report podcast, pewterreport.com, our website, or our social media channels, which have a combined followership of over 110,000. You can email me at sr@pewterreport.com. I'd love to send you some information, have a conversation with you about it. We have sponsorship opportunities available. Football season will be here before you know it, so it's a great time to advertise with Pewter Report. And we have a couple of interesting shows that you might be interested in, like the one tomorrow. Matt Matera and Adam Slovan will be doing a Bucs mock draft roundup. Now, they're going to be focusing on the premium guys, the big shots, the big wigs that do the mock drafts. So guys from NFL Network, ESPN, PFF, etc. Dane Brugler just came out with this 7-round mock draft for the Buccaneers. That's going to be the topic for tomorrow's show. So we're getting closer to the draft. It is just about a week away. So that's going to be interesting. And speaking of draft, yours truly and Josh Capo will be back next Monday, 5 o'clock. We're going to be dropping our final Bucs mock draft on pewterreport.com. That's right after our Monday podcast. Then at 8:30, we will return to the Pewter Report podcast for our Bucs mock draft show number 5. We're going to be going through each pick of our final mock draft. And we're not tipping off who we're picking because we have Todd Bowles and Jason Light on this graphic. And we'll take your questions and hear your comments. And if you don't like it, you can let us know. And if you love it, you can also let us know. That's 8:30 next Monday, April 21st. So there will not be a Pewter Insider show this week. Just want to let you know we're going to be celebrating Good Friday. I'm going to be out of town, and so will Matt. So we'll have to postpone that for a week, but we will have a Pewter Insider show on the second day of the draft. How cool is that?
That is cool. And the plan is I will have my top 10 wide receiver video for that Friday. So a nice little stand-in for it. And just kind of going back to the to signing up to be a Pewter Report member on our YouTube channel, that means you would get early access to that video.
That's right. Absolutely. We do that for our Pewter Pro, Premier, and Platinum members. So that's an awesome thing. Just like our friends over at Brier Greaves Insurance. That's right. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on. Homeowners, auto, flood, boaters, and business insurance. Work with an independent agency that you can trust. And that's so important. In this day and age, that personal touch seems to be fleeting as more and more companies go to automation. Brier Greaves Insurance is a family-owned Tampa business. John Greaves, who's Brier's son, is my personal insurance agent. And whenever I have any insurance needs, which I've had some this year for sure, I give him a call or I shoot him a text or I drop him an email, and he's right back with the answers that I need, lickety split. And the best thing about Brier Greaves Insurance is they can save you money. So even if you're with an insurance agency right now for, let's say, your auto owner's policy or your homeowner's policy, it doesn't hurt to give Brier Greaves Insurance a call. They're going to check the rates for you with all of the carriers that service Florida, all of them. And they'll do that for free. So they're going to do all the legwork for you, present you with the best options, and then they'd love to have your business. So why don't you give Brier Greaves a call and save some money? Because you might be overpaying for your homeowners or your auto owner's insurance because the insurance rates change all the time. So get with Brier Greaves. They will shop your rate around to the best companies. I'm with Travelers, for example. They also will write Geico policies as well. So that's the benefit of having a personal insurance agent with a personal touch. Visit them on the web at briergreavesinsurance.com. That's Brier, B-R-I-E-R, Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S, insurance.com, or give them a call at 813-876-4166 and tell them Pewter Report sent you. Josh, any final thoughts on this? I think we're going to find out for sure whether Tykee Smith moves to safety after the draft, depending on who they draft. But it just looks to me like with the players that the Buccaneers have had in, there's a lot of nickel corner options there. When you look at the nickel corners, there's not many on this team. The Buccaneers are a little bit more flush at safety if Tykee Smith ends up going to safety. But I think we can pretty much rest assured that they're going to come away with at least two defensive backs in this year's draft, right? One outside corner to challenge Jamel Dean, and then one inside corner to challenge Christian Izien at the nickel spot. Does that seem like a fair assessment to you?
Yeah, the only thing I'll amend is depending on how the board falls, potentially a safety where Tykee's the one challenging Christian Izien. But yeah, Izien is the guy who will be the odd man out depending on who is drafted for that more interior position.
Yep. We had a great show today. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Just a reminder to hit the thumbs up button on our videos, whether it's Josh's positional previews, the Pewter Pulse videos I do, our Pewter Report podcast, Adam Slavan's top 10 takeaways. When you give us a like, that's a thumbs up, and leave a comment. Doing those two things helps us with the YouTube algorithm. It helps us defeat the YouTube overlords and foil their plans. So that's a great way for you to get our videos in front of other Buccaneer fans, leaving comments and also giving us a thumbs up. Greatly appreciate it. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button on our Pewter Report TV YouTube channel. We're over 18,000 thanks to you. Make sure you hit notifications as well, because whenever Josh or myself drop a video or we go live with the Pewter Report podcast, you'll get that notification on your phone to, hey, there's new content at Pewter Report TV. Come check it out. And make sure that you are going to our social media channels, X, Instagram, and Facebook at Pewter Report. And, of course, YouTube is Pewter Report TV. And pewterreport.com, our mothership, where you can find all of our draft coverage. Again, the mock draft that drops on Monday at 5 p.m. will be our final Bucs 7-round mock draft. We'll have positional previews and Bucs best bets all the way through until Wednesday, April 23rd. And then, of course, our draft coverage is going to be phenomenal. And we would be remiss if we didn't promote that as well. Our PR live draft show, April 24th through the 26th, live at team headquarters. That will be streaming on Pewter Report TV YouTube channel, Facebook, and X at Pewter Report, as well as pewterreport.com. It's always a fun 3-day event. We'll have the Pewter Report staff there. Josh, if you can make it down, great. If you can't, we will use technology to get you there by Zoom. So we're excited about that, and we'll have some special guests on the show as well.
Yeah, I won't be able to get it down there for this one this year, unfortunately. I've been down for the last 3, I think, 2 or 3 in a row. But I'm excited to join virtually. And then I was going to put this out there. Nobody else knows this. I'm going to tell you this right now, Scott.
Okay.
Since we're at 18,000 subscribers to the YouTube channel, it gives me enough time that when we hit 20,000, I will put together a video of me doing all the combine drills. At least the specific testing, right? I may have to opt out of the bench or really, really put it in high gear because I don't know if I'm going to be able to do one.
I sense a workman's comp claim coming.
But I may opt out of the bench, but we'll get a 10-yard split for me. I'll do the vert, the broad, and the short shuttle and the 3-cone, and we'll make that our celebratory video for hitting 20,000 subscribers.
Okay. So don't hurt yourself. Please train. Please stretch.
Yes, stretching every day. I'm an old man now, so
exactly.
First thing in the morning. But I will train to do those drills, and we can laugh at all my times.
That sounds great. Well, we had a great time today with you, Pewter people. Thanks for joining us, Josh. Thank you as well for joining us. And we'll have Matt Matera and Adam Slavan on tomorrow for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. I am Scott. That is Josh. And we are out.